The practice manual should be used by service partners in the field when delivering financial protection services. It includes tools, resources, and step-by-step guidance for use during outreach and in-house services. The introductory chapter of the practice manual summarises some key concepts from the other guides to be kept in mind during outreach. The financial protection service is aimed at Queenslanders who are approaching or in early retirement. And this is likely to be adults in middle age, about 50 years or so, although the financial protection service does not exclude on the basis of age. In keeping with age-friendly goals, providing written materials will be essential. Outreach handouts and information resources are linked in the referral table, and these should be on hand. And we've created some outreach which are in Appendix C and can be provided to service users. Conversations are essential for building trust and should be adapted to the needs of service users and local communities. Some of the conversation tips we've included in the practice manual are drawn from the work of Hemsley on improving communication for people with disabilities. These include removing communication barriers by treating people the same as you would another person, talking directly to them, asking them questions, using communication aids and alternative strategies when you talk by using facial expressions, body language, gestures, and a certain tone of voice. You can also use writing, drawing, and written resources to supplement verbal conversations. And preparing for communication success by asking the older person how they prefer to communicate, keeping the environment calm, distraction-free, and conversing where there is minimal background noise, giving your full attention to the older person and using verbal cues such as yes to show you're listening, using facial expressions, and giving the person time to respond, allowing for pauses in the conversation. Outreach aims to support autonomous decision-making and honour service users' conscience, values, views and beliefs that underpin their will and preferences. Service partners should be aiming to introduce straightforward financial information and referrals and offering prompts in key teachable moments and proactive action areas. The Financial Protection Service adopts a person-centred approach to service provision. Adopting a person-centred approach means that we should expect very few conversations with older people to happen the same way. Now, capacity and autonomy are covered in the practice manual, and we acknowledge that they are complex concepts. So service partners should ensure that workers are appropriately trained in their professional obligations and approaches. And we ask service partners to keep in mind the general position, which is that people are more than the sum of their cognitive abilities or present circumstances. Capacity to make decisions, including financial decisions, should always be presumed. Where an older person identifies they have an appointed decision maker, supporter or representative, they can still be offered information and referrals. Adopting a person-centred approach means that we should expect few conversations to go the same, and we aim to be flexible to accommodate difference. In delivering person-centred services, we're asking service partners to adapt their delivery to suit the individual, communicate in a way that is congruent with the client's demeanour, listen actively and read non-verbals to pick up on the person's unique responses, and respond courteously and non-judgmentally, irrespective of any personal reactions to the way the person presents or communicates. Helen Wallace, Senior Social Worker at Caxton Slash Service, is gratefully thanked for her contribution of these pointers. The introductory guide of the practice manual also recaps key points about screening, outreach and referral. The purpose of screening is to identify whether the older person is experiencing or at risk of experiencing financial abuse. The practice manual contains two sections, one with steps for outreach service delivery and another with steps for service delivery during in-house services. The practice manual is set out on the basis that informal screening will be used during outreach. If formal screening is being used during outreach, then the in-house practice manual should be followed instead. You will see that the pre-screening and screening workflow diagrams have been reproduced in the practice manual, and the screening tools are attached to the practice manual. Appendix D also includes conversation prompts and referral areas. This information has been drawn straight from the ASIC Money Smart website and other sources, so it's not for distribution to service users. It's been provided to help service partners understand the scope and tone of conversations, and you should use it as a starting point for conversations and feel free to add to it. We'll now work through an example of using conversation prompts, information handouts, and referral table shortly. Turning to referral, the Financial Information Desk and financial counsellors are key referral pathways. The Financial Protection Service is partnered with the National Seniors Financial Information Desk to provide referrals in key areas. We've already spoken about the categories of service users. The Financial Protection Service aims to reach 4 key types of service users, and broadly speaking, this should affect financial referrals in the following way. For Category 1 and 3 service users who can or are likely to be able to afford to access mainstream financial products and services, financial referrals should be to suggest the older person speak to their own accountant or contact an accountant via the Money Smart website, or take up a National Seniors membership to access the Financial Information Desk. For Category 2 and 4 service users who cannot or are not likely to be able to afford mainstream financial products and services, financial referrals should be made to a local financial counselling service where that's relevant, and the Financial Information Desk via the brokerage fee arrangement. So that means that a free referral can be provided to the Financial Information Desk, and the process is set out in the practice manual. In those areas where an accountant is the only appropriate referral for Category 2 or 4 service users, service partners should provide the older person with as much information as possible in addition to the referral. A referral to a financial counsellor should be considered any time the service user presents who appears to be in financial difficulty. For example, where they're having difficulty paying loans, credit or other debt, or difficulty paying utility bills. Financial counsellors are key referral partners due to their experience in working with disadvantaged and vulnerable service users. And we've worked with the Financial Counselling Association of Queensland to ensure that we're making referrals in appropriate areas. The Financial Counselling Referral Form in Appendix L should be used when making a facilitated referral to a financial counsellor during in-house services. And this form was generously provided by Good Shepherd Microfinance. Where an older person has been screened of as at risk of financial abuse or appears to be on the brink of making a financial decision that may make them vulnerable, they should immediately be referred to in-house for formal screening and facilitated referral. During in-house services, they should be given a referral to legal or social work services as per the SLAS model, or to separate legal and social work services that have been approached during outreach scoping. The referral process is set out in the post-screening referral table in Appendix F. Part 2 of the practice manual provides step-by-step guidance on the outreach process. This table summarises the process and is replicated in the practice manual. Some key points are that where there's risk, including where the outreach worker has a gut instinct that the older person is at risk of or experiencing financial abuse, they should be immediately referred in-house. As a starting point, we've provided some conversation points covering the financial and legal information that can be provided during outreach. The practice manual confirms the referral process for the Financial Information Desk, financial counsellors and accountants. Social support referrals will have been identified during outreach scoping. Legal and social work referrals will either be in-house to SLAS or as determined during outreach scoping. Briefly working through an example, say you're speaking with an older person during outreach and they say they want to get an idea of the costs of aged care and the process involved. You can refer to the summary table in the practice manual to get an idea of the referral pathways. This will let you know that for information, you can refer them to the Financial Information Desk, but if the person wants or needs advice, they're going to need to speak to an accountant and/or a lawyer. You can then turn to the conversation prompts and referral areas in Appendix D to give you some introductory talking points about the aged care costs and processes. And again, this information has been drawn directly from other sources, so it shouldn't be provided to clients. It's really just a talking point. The referral table in Appendix E show you where to refer the person for further financial information and advice, as well as providing legal information and referrals. And finally, you can provide the older person with the aged care handout that we've created, and we'll write any referral pathways on the form. Part 3 of the practice manual provides step-by-step guidance on the in-house process. This table summarised the process, and again it's replicated in the practice manual. Some key points are that the older person should become a client once in-house services are being delivered. Where the client is screened of at risk or experiencing financial abuse, they should be referred to a legal and social work service as per the SLAS model. Facilitated referrals by assisting the client to access services can be made during in-house services. Screening will occur during in-house services, and the screening tools are annexed to the practice manual. For example, during in-house services, if you have a client who appears to be on the brink of making financial decisions, such as giving an adult child money to build a granny flat, you could use the LFDSS screening tool to screen for abuse. Depending on the funding set up at your centre, it might be sensible to have screening undertaken by lawyers or social workers, or in their company, so that if there is financial abuse, legal advice and social work support can be immediately offered. The remainder of the process is very much the same in terms of providing information and referrals, although you can also take the step of facilitating contact. So, for example, making or attending a financial counselling appointment where the older person is in financial distress. I don't propose to go into detail about all the sections of the practice manual, as we've tried to make it as user-friendly as possible, and I'd encourage you to read through it. Thank you for sitting through these presentations. Now that you're familiar with the service, I suggest you take the following steps. Firstly, you should read through Chapter 2 of the referral guide so that you feel confident undertaking financial protection services within the financial and regulatory frameworks around providing financial information and referring. Secondly, you should read the practice manual and familiarise yourself with the referral table, conversation points and handouts. We've also linked sources so you can start to read more widely on the financial information topics. Thirdly, you should undertake a scoping survey to begin to plan your outreach service. If you're not already familiar with your area, you can start by looking at statistics and reaching out to services. This will be a good way to start to get to know your community. The scoping survey is a good touch point for discussions, and your team may have some creative ideas for reaching out to older persons in your community.